I saw him took my mom to a room, to one of the bedrooms, and he said, "I needed to talk to you. I got some news for you." And so all I heard was a scream coming out of that room. And I remember my mom just running around the corner towards me and just grabbed my shoulders and said,
Welcome to Love Shaped Life, where our goal is to help people to see, experience, and live the radical love of God. Today is Season 4, Episode 1, and with me in the studio is Elton Miranda. Elton, we want to welcome you.
Thank you, Bob.
Elton is our producer here at Love Shaped Life. He's usually behind the cameras, but today we're going to share his story. Behind the cameras today is his daughter, Eliana. She's 14 years old. We want to thank you, Eliana, for being with us and for sharing your gifts here at Love Shaped Life. So, Elton, share with us briefly just a little bit about where you're at now as far as your family life and so on.
Sure. Very, very happy to be here. Normally I'm behind the cameras and
a little different spot.
Yeah. But it's great. I'm privileged to be here to share my story. So currently I have a beautiful family. My wife, Kelly, who is a nurse, but once we had our kids, we decided to stay home and raise the kids. And currently I have two daughters, Eliana, who's behind the camera, 14 years old, and Alyssa, who's 11, and they're both homeschooling. And so it's amazing how much they've learned, you know. Amazing. So I got to give credit to my wife, you know, for taking that big task. And so I currently work as a nurse practitioner for an orthopedic clinic in Daytona, and I've been with them for 9 years. And I see patients in the office. I'm in surgery with the surgeon, which is a privilege right there. I would have never thought to be the right hand of a surgeon working together, you know. So it's a major blessing. So you understand why from when we talk about my story. So, that's living in Palm Coast. Been here for 16 years, and so that's where I'm at right now.
So, Elton, besides what you do as a nurse practitioner, you have some passions, you know, and I think of two particular passions. One is your videography. You seem to have love for videography, but also you have a passion for singing. Can you share with us a little bit about how that makes you tick? I mean, Yeah.
So, as you know, music has been there from day one, and it's been through my journey, through my story. You know, it's just been there. And I've been privileged to sing in different groups, you know, and have a solo career at one point. And currently I'm blessed to be in two groups right now. One of them is One Accord, and the other one's Devoted. And they're both doing really good. Very blessed to be with them, and continue to have my little solo career also. And videography was something that kind of sparked, I would say, late in my journey, but it was always there, you know. And so I finally kind of tapped into it, and so now I'm privileged to be part of this ministry, Love Shaped Life, you know, being behind the cameras and producing, you know, the videos and, you know, the podcasts for you guys. It's a blessing. And I also have another podcast with 3 members of our church, you know, and so yeah.
Well, we're grateful to have you part of the team, and for all that you do for us. So, Elton, let's just jump into your story as far as your journey of life.
Yeah.
Share with us a little bit about your background, where you were raised, what was that like, where you were raised, what was happening there?
All right, so I'll tell my age. You know, I was born in 1976, right in the middle of Chicago, right smack in the city, you know, it was not a great neighborhood, you know. So I was born in 76, and, you know, my mom and dad, you know, at that time, things weren't great. It was more of a dysfunctional family, you know. And my mom had just kind of started learning about God when I was born, and my dad wasn't really interested, you know, in learning about God and His love and stuff like that. So
Let me stop you for
Yeah,
a moment, if I
yeah.
may. So you say that you were born and raised in Chicago. It wasn't the best neighborhood. You had shared with me earlier about what the neighborhood was like
Oh,
and
yeah.
some of your experiences. You used to have to run to school, which was only a couple blocks away, just for safety reasons.
That's correct. Yeah, I lived about 2 blocks away from the school, and yeah, it was there was gangs at that time. You saw graffitis all over the wall. They used to those gang members used to stand in the corner. You didn't want to do any eye contact, stuff like that. So, so initially, my mom would walk me to school. As I got a little older, she says, "I think you're brave enough to go on your own
To run,
exactly." And so yeah, it was pretty rough neighborhood.
So was that scary going to school on your own because of the neighborhood?
Yeah, definitely. You try to leave a little early and just pray that you just didn't run into a bad situation. Because you always heard, hey, someone got hurt last night or something like that, and so it was pretty rough. So yeah, thank God, he took care of me during that time. And also, I say my cousins, but I call them brothers. I'll go into that, but we would sometimes go together to school and run back.
So they live near you.
Yeah,
Okay.
they live near me. Yeah.
So you mentioned your mom and dad.
Yeah.
Tell us about their background. Where were they from?
So they met in New York. My mom she was born and raised in Honduras, Central America, and my dad was from Puerto Rico, and they met in New York, and eventually they moved to Chicago. I can't really remember. I have a picture of them when they got married, but I'm not sure what year it was. But they got married here they got married in Chicago, and so and then they had me. I was like the only child. So to talk a little bit about my parents, my dad, he at the age of 17 had his first kid in Puerto Rico, and he kind of just abandoned his first child. As soon as he found out that he was going to be a father, he left, and he came to the States, and so during his time he had a lot of girlfriends or wives. I don't know how many. He loved women basically. So he had several kids everywhere, and so I think I was number 4 or 5 or something like that, when he met my mom. And so, he settled down with my mom. And so he was a hard worker, went to work every day, but he had this addiction, which was alcohol. And that, he couldn't kick that to the curb, he just... So
this was an everyday experience for him, drinking alcohol. Was that like after work, or did he drink during work?
It was kind of like a hit or miss. When he was sober, he was a great guy, really cool, very chilling, relaxing. But once that alcohol went into his system, he just became a different person, a very aggressive. He's just you didn't recognize him. And so, so there were times he would come home, drunk, yelling and screaming, and to the point where he would hit my mom, and this went on during their marriage, and so I remember there was one evening my mom had me in the tub. She was giving me a bath. And my dad came in. He was drunk, yelling, and went into the bathroom and started screaming at my mom, and just punched her dead on the face. I'll never forget that. And I remember yelling, "Dad, please don't hit mommy." And as my mom turned around to look at me, you can see the blood just streaming from her nose. It was, I'll never forget that image.
Yeah.
And
how old were you then?
Man, I'm gonna say maybe I was probably 3, 4, you know, and so my mom made a decision that she wanted to separate ways, you know, just be done with this. And I remember.
Sorry, but she was done with this cycle, right?
This cycle, yeah. So that night, she ended up calling the cops. They arrested my dad. They cuffed him and they took him away. And then after that, my mom had made the decision to say, hey, you know, I'm done with this. I'm going to divorce him, you know. And so, so at an early age, you know, it's like, wow, you know, divorce, you know, what is that? And so I understood quickly that, you know, dad wasn't going to be in the picture anymore, you know. And so I didn't see my dad for a long time, you know. And then finally he kind of came into my life. And my mom told me, you know, your dad's going to be allowed to come and see you one day a week. And it was on Sunday. I remember that. He can take you out, you know, spend a day with him, and then he'll have to bring you back. So, and he was pretty compliant with that. Sometimes he would miss a Sunday or two, you know, but so every time he would come and pick me up, my mom would say, hey, listen, I want you to give him this magazine. And it was a Spanish magazine called El Centinela, you know. It's kind of almost like a Review and Herald. I mean, just, you know. So it was a Christian magazine, and so she wanted a witness to my dad, you know, even though my dad didn't want to know anything about God. And the other thing was, she said, I want you to sing to him. So before that car pulls out, you gotta say, Dad, I need to sing a song for you.
So let me stop for a moment.
Yeah.
So you were singing at this point?
Yeah, I was singing. Yeah,
and maybe we can back up for a moment because if I remember the story, your mom and dad, when they met, they weren't religious people.
Correct. Yeah.
So what happened in between with your mom that all of a sudden she's wanting for you to pass a tract to your dad? And it says a lot for your mom.
Yeah.
That in spite of how she was abused, that she was still reaching out with love for your father. So maybe if we can just back up for a moment and share about your mom's journey. What happened there?
All right. So how she knew about God was my I'm going to say my cousin, but I'm going to interchange this because he's my brother, Nelson. So he's like...
This is one of the ones that you went to school with?
Yeah, so it's my aunt's oldest son.
Okay.
And Nelson. So at that time, my aunt, which I call her Mommy Daisy, I never called her aunt. She played a big role in my life. So
you had two moms.
I had two moms, that's right. So I called her Mommy Daisy.
Wow.
And then my mom, Mommy, you know. So... She was looking for a Christian school to put her son into, and she called different places. They said that, you know, there was no spot available. They were full and stuff like that. And so it was through a friend of a friend that said, hey, there's a school by where you live, and that's the school I used to run to, you know. So Nelson went to that school. He was the first one to go there, and Mommy Daisy and my mom, they weren't, you know, at that time they were, you know, Catholics, you know, and so Nelson would come back home and say, hey, Mom, look what I learned about, you know, and it would be stories about the Bible. And you know, my mom and my aunt was like, wow, that's cool, you know, all right. And so through that channel, the teachers from that school were also like missionaries, you know, they went out and so... my aunt and my mom, they were very curious about this, you know, like, wow. So, and then he would say, hey, Mom, why can't we go to church, you know? Because they weren't really actively going to church at that time. And so through that channel, that's where they ended up going to church because of my brother Nelson, you know?
Was Nelson your age?
He's 4 years older than me.
He's 4 years older.
Yeah. And then the church reached out to them and started studying the Bible with them, and they accepted God and never turned back since then.
So they went, they were baptized.
Yeah, they were baptized. Yeah.
So then the church started to be a part of your life, and all of a sudden you were like attending church.
I was attending church. I remember, you know, my mom would throw a little suit on me, and you know, we would go to church. And then I would go to these kids class, where you learn more about God. And so there was one special Sabbath where we all performed in front of the church. It was a big class, and so I was kind of standing in the front row, almost in the middle. And so we all started singing this song, and my teacher took a notice of me and saw that I was kind of singing with some energy, And I still have the picture where she put the microphone in front of me.
Wow.
Out of all these kids,
Yeah.
And so afterwards, she went up to my mom and said, "Hey, your son has a gift of music. You should look into it." And my mom took it seriously, and she said, "All right, I'll see what I can do." And so throughout school, when I was in school, she made sure I was like in choir and stuff like that, where I kept on singing, And so it came to the point where my mom, I don't know how she did it, because we financially weren't doing well. We just didn't have a whole lot of money, And she said, I'm gonna put you at a music conservatory. And it was in downtown Chicago.
Wow.
And so it was just for 30 minutes, and I don't know how much it cost, but I imagine that probably wasn't in the budget, but she managed, because she was seriously wanting to invest in my singing. So I got accepted. You had to apply and stuff like that. So I got accepted, and so I started being trained, professionally. And the teachers were kind of like skeptical, because it was kind of like, we want to train him, but once he hits puberty, his voice might change and whatnot. But these teachers were amazing. They just took on, and my teacher was actually a gospel singer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So a lot of the songs that I was singing were gospel. So that was pretty cool.
So just to now go back in the story, right?
Yeah.
So that's the picture of now your dad's back in the scene.
Yeah.
Years had passed because, and so when you would see your dad, your mom was trying to help your dad, which is a beautiful thing. And also I want to mention your teacher.
Yeah.
I think it's wonderful when people observe things in people and actually give them an affirmation and encourage them to develop their talent. I think it's a huge thing in life. But so that's where your mom now would have you sing, right? Because you were turning into a singer,
Correct.
right? So you give your dad a track, right? And then you sang to him. Yeah. And he would, I think you mentioned to me, he would close his eyes and listen.
Yeah, yeah. So at times, it'd be, with music or just a cappella, I just there and I would just sing him a song. And yeah, you're right. I remember him closing his eyes. And the rumor has it that my dad, at one time, he used to sing. I mean, I never heard him sing, but, and so he would just close his eyes and just, and I sensed that he enjoyed it, trying to give him a positive message,
What was that like for you, singing to your dad in those moments?
Regardless who my dad was, he was, I loved him. Yeah, right. He was still my dad. And I just felt so happy, and I would just pray that maybe a word or a phrase can just break through his heart, just with these songs, and you know me. Every time I sing, I sing with with everything I got.
It's called passion.
Passion, yeah. And that's how I would try to fill that car up with all these notes and this positive message. So it was always a blessing, a privilege to just pray that this song may touch him, and I felt that it did, so yeah, it was always I always looked forward to it.
Yeah, it was a good moment.
Good moment.
Good moment.
Yeah.
So your mom, she becomes a Christian. You're going to church. You're singing, and then we talked earlier. Again, your life changed because your mom met somebody. So what happened there?
So so she met someone from the church, and he started a relationship, and they got married, and seemed like a good guy, and so
he treated her well.
Treated her well.
And it was a positive experience for you.
Correct. It was a positive experience. He involved in the family. I didn't see any, what I saw before, physical abuse. And I think as a child, you're anticipating that. You're like, man, when's this gonna happen? But it was just, a Christian guy devoted to God, and I was like, all right, So it was definitely a 180.
Yeah, some peace in the house.
Some peace in the house, And so it wasn't, everything started out really good, But at one point, my mom and my stepdad, they kind of stopped seeing eye to eye. And so they got separated for I don't know how long, And so then I, you start getting flashbacks and like, oh man, this is what's going on here. And, but they got back together. And so, and then, he stayed with her until,
yeah.
I won't ruin the story here, but
no, but as that journey was going, right?
Yeah.
Your mom gets remarried.
Yeah.
You've got a new family life, and you are seeing your dad from time to time, right?
Yeah.
And you're singing him a song.
Yeah.
And then there was a tragedy hit, right?
Correct.
It was like your final song to your dad. Can you share with us, starting there, what that was like?
Correct. So I just want to clear that when my mom got married, it was after my dad. It was so. So yes. So we had the kind of the tradition of, at that time we lived in the first floor of an apartment, and Mommy Daisy and Papi Nelson used to live in the third floor. So we would get ready to go to church, and then we would go upstairs and just, say good morning and, just have a little chat, sometimes have some breakfast together. And this time around it was different. So we went upstairs, and my Papi Nelson, my uncle, I saw him took my mom to a room, to one of the bedrooms, and he said, I needed to talk to you. I got some news for you. And so all I heard was a scream coming out of that room. And I remember my mom just running around the corner towards me, and just grabbed my shoulders and said, just delivered the news to me, right? Like just raw, and said, your dad died. Your dad died.
And how old were you?
I was 9 years old. And, how does a 9-year-old process something like that, And, I remember just started breaking down, crying. I had no idea what happened, And so the odd thing is that we still went to church that day. But we were all like, we were trying to just figure out things, And so what happened was that Friday night, my dad, he owned like a 2-family house, and there was a basement, and he told his wife at that time, because he got remarried, he moved on, and so he said, I'm going to go to the basement, I'll be right back. And so he went down to the basement, and he made a phone call. He made a phone call to one of his close friends, and who happens to be a pastor. They became really good friends, and called him up, and there was no answer. And so he decided to take his life away. Talking to Mommy Daisy, I had asked her, is there a reason? Was there a reason behind it? And it's unclear. She says there could have been several things. He was diagnosed with cirrhosis of the liver, and that's due to a lot of alcohol. A lot of alcohol. So your liver gets a hit. I know he suffered of depression. And so I don't know if it was just a combination of everything that kind of just decided him to put a 38 behind his right ear and took his life away. So his wife at that time noticed that he hadn't come back for a while, and so she went downstairs and saw him on the floor laying in a puddle of blood. Interesting enough, he had a table, just a regular table, and he had all the magazines that I had given to him.
Wow.
Laid out.
Wow, that's beautiful.
You know.
So you had mentioned to me in the story when we were talking about you had a last encounter with your dad when you were saying goodbye, and you sang a song to him. Can you share what that was like, and what was the song, and why you perhaps chose that song?
So, so that last time that I saw him, I sang the song "My Tribute" by Andre Crouch, and he you know, I don't know why I picked that song, but it kind of resonates with looking back now, like how it all kind of laid out. And so, so for his funeral, he, all his family came, you know, obviously, and there was a member of our church that had asked my mom, "Hey, do you think Elton's going to sing for the service?" And
this is your dad's funeral service.
Yeah,
and you're 9 years old.
And yeah.
Wow.
And so my mom has said, you know, I haven't asked him, but I'm not sure if he's going to do it or not. And so she asked me. She said she didn't really push it on me or anything. She says, "Hey, you know, if you want to sing at your dad's service, you know, it's something that you can think about." And so I finally decided to do it, and I sang that last song, "My Tribute."
I remember you shared with me, and you know, you at the end of the song, obviously you broke, and you ran into your mom's arms.
Yeah.
You know, and she embraced you. Well, that's a lot to go through for a 9-year-old, and the process, you know, going from an abusive relationship and seeing the abuse on your mom, and then the splitting up, and then the unfortunate tragedy that happened with your dad. And like you said, I like what you mentioned, because my father was an alcoholic too, that they're still your dad. Right?
Yeah,
and
they are.
Regardless of what they're doing, you're still your dad, and you still love them.
And you love them.
You love them, yeah.
You know, you embrace their, you know, their strength and also their weaknesses. You know, you know. So yeah, like you said, you know, I needed a couple of notes left in that song, and that's you're right. I broke down, and so yeah, that was a big tragedy. Big tragedy in my life.
So as you were processing that, obviously as a 9-year-old, you're processing that, and what was that like for you? Do you have any recollections of what that was like?
You know, you go through this emotional roller coaster. You know, you just, you know, you ask all these questions, and you know why, you know, and you know, and during that time, you know, that's where I saw my mom's strength. You know, I just, you know, I would just go to her, and she, you know, she'll say everything will be all right. You know, God knows why. You know, and so yeah, she was like, you know, the person to go to. She was
your rock.
She was my rock, man. Yeah, she was, and if you were to know her, she was just a very strong, you know, very determined, you know, passionate person, you know, and yeah, that's, you know, God and her was who I leaned to, you know, and so, and that's how I was able to get through this through this tragedy, you know.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So your mom,
Yeah.
being your rock and guiding you through the tragedy, and her faith in God. And,
her faith, yeah. Yeah, like I said, when she accepted God, man, it was no turning back. You know, she
was all in.
She was all in through good, through bad times. She was
She didn't
all
waver.
In. She didn't waver.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. So you get through that, right? And you're going on with this journey. You know, you have your stepdad now, and your mom, and then your stepdad begins to notice something about your mom's health.
Yeah.
Right. And you know, share with us a little bit about.
Yeah. So he noticed that she, you know, there was a small lump in her chest, and so my mom, you know, kind of kept on brushing it off. You know, it's a cyst, or you know, nothing major, but slowly it was growing, and so finally my stepdad said, "Hey, you should go to the doctor, you know, and get yourself examined." So she ended up going, and they did a biopsy and all that, and it came back as breast cancer. So I just found this out that 1 month later, after my dad died, my mom was diagnosed with breast cancer.
Wow. Wow. 1 month.
1 month. 1 month after.
And what was that diagnosis or prognosis for her?
It wasn't good. It wasn't good at that time. They said it was about 4, maybe 6 months.
Wow.
And so now we get slammed with another tragedy, you know. And so they said, 4 to 6 months, and I think that's all she's going to have. So they started with her chemotherapy. She went through radiation. She had a mastectomy. You know, she went through the whole thing. And so she went into remission for about 2 years, and she was doing pretty good, you know, and still being the same person. Believe me, sometimes she would come back from these, you know, radiation or chemotherapy. I mean, and, you know, you can see her energy was low. It was just really taking a toll on her. But, man, she was just so resilient, you know. I remember her being just laying in bed, you know, because she was just extremely tired. And she would just talk to me, you know, hold my hand. And just saying everything's going to be good. Everything's going to be all right, you know.
Wow.
Yeah, it's just like, wow, man, you know. Wow. And so, and then at the same time, you know, like we had some family also looking other options, you know, kind of seeing, you know, what else can help, you know, eradicate this cancer, you know. So 2 years went by, and she went to remission. She was great. And then afterwards, the cancer came back. And this time around, it came even more aggressive. And this time it had metastasized to her bones. And so they continued with some treatment, but it wasn't really working this time around. And the doctor that we had, he was an unbelievable doctor. I vaguely remember him, but he was just a really nice, personable doctor, you know. So it came to a point where he called the family together. And we remember going into this room, and he sat down with us, and he says, "Listen, I'm going to be honest with you. We've tried everything that we can, you know, to make, my mom's name is Jeanette, and to make her better, but we have no more options." And so he says, "I don't know how much time she has left, but, you know, I just want to let you know." And so we were getting prepared for that.
And how old were you at that point?
So I was already 14, 14 years old. And I was kind of going to school. Sometimes I would miss a day or two. The teachers were they were just so understanding, you know. I would get behind homework and stuff just because I was just dealing with this. But they were amazing. They embraced me. They were just super, super understanding. I mean, and so I was in school, and I got a phone call that Papi Nelson, my uncle, was going to come and pick me up. And so he picked me up. He says, we got to go to the hospital. I said, Mom is not doing well. I said, all right. So we went to the hospital, and he dropped me off and went into the room, and Mommy Daisy was there. And there was no one else. It was just Mommy Daisy. And so I could see my mom was just pale, and weak. And I approached her. She held my hand. And she said, Elton, thank you for being a great son.
Wow. Wow.
I will see you in heaven. And there was a chair right next to her, and I just sat down holding her hand. And Mommy Daisy was on the other side. And after that, she gave her last breath.
Wow. Wow. What a beautiful person.
Yeah.
Thinking of you, right? I'll
Yeah.
see you in heaven. Thank you for being a great son. Powerful statement.
Powerful. As a kid, you got your moments, you disobey and stuff, and
Yeah.
but
That's what,
for
not
her
what
to,
she saw.
it was just,
She saw your heart.
yeah,
Like God sees our heart, right?
exactly.
He sees our heart. He looks beyond
Exactly.
all of our
Imperfections.
mistakes and
yeah.
imperfections. We have a tendency to focus on those things.
Oh, yeah.
But God doesn't look that way at us. And just like your mom, she was seeing her beautiful son,
Yeah.
right? And saying thank you
Yeah,
for being a great son. And that she would see you
In
on
heaven.
the other side. Yeah.
that's right.
Yeah. Wow. So this is 5 years later after
Yeah.
your dad's tragedy.
Yeah, roughly,
your
4 or
dad's
5
death.
years, yeah.
Yeah. So that's
So she ended up living 4 years,
well, that's another major impact
Yeah.
on you as a child. I
Yeah.
mean, you're a child still.
Yeah.
And what was that journey like for you?
Yeah. So now at 14, I have no parents. And again, you go through that roller coaster again. Now what? What's going to happen?
Sure.
And so talking to my aunt 2 days ago, which makes 33 years since my mom passed away, just 2 days ago from today.
Wow.
So March 14.
Amazing. And we're doing this podcast. We
March
didn't
16.
time it.
We didn't time it.
Yeah.
And then my dad died March 9. Same, so they both died on the same month.
Same month.
Yeah. So just about 4 years apart.
Mm-hmm.
So at 14, I have no parents, and Mommy Daisy was saying that I was always surrounded by lovable people. It was like this nuclei, just amazing people. And Mommy Daisy was saying that there was already 5 families that wanted to adopt me.
Wow.
Yeah, 5. And so before my mom passed, she said, listen, I want you to raise Elton,
Mommy Daisy.
Mommy Daisy,
Yeah.
She told her
And this
sister.
was her sister.
Yeah, sisters, yeah. So Mommy Daisy, she's the oldest. And then my mom is the middle, and there's a younger one. She lives in Honduras. So yeah, she says, I want to make sure that you raise Elton, no one else.
Wow.
But she was telling me, there was 5 families ready to adopt me. And so, my Mommy Daisy says, no problem. And so we went through all of the legal aspects of this. I remember going to court, and the judge had one question for me, and he said, would you like to change your last name? And I kind of looked at Mommy Daisy, and I said, I don't want to change my last name. I want to keep it. So, and she was fine with it. She said, no problem, And so I kept my last name, Miranda. And, the transition was so smooth, because we always worked together. Mommy Daisy, Papi Nelson, 2 sons, we always worked together. So it was a smooth transition. I felt like I was part of the family. You know, so if you ask Mommy Daisy, how many sons do you have? She says 3. Yeah, she says, I have 3 sons.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
So you had always called her your mom, and she's calling you her son.
Correct.
That's absolutely beautiful.
Correct. And they played a big role also in you know, taking care of me. They provided everything I needed, education. They made sure that I had everything that I need. So
you shared with me that you went from Chicago to a boarding school.
Oh yeah.
Share with us a little bit about that. You know.
Yeah. So I did my first 2 years of high school in Chicago, and then Mommy Daisy, you know, and Papi Nelson was like, "Hey, listen, you know, to finish your high school, there's a place in Tennessee," and I didn't know anything about this school. I just knew that one of my good friends was going to go there, and I said, "Sure, I'll go." So I never went to visit the school. I showed up like the day before school started, and it was in the middle of Tennessee, in some country, you know, cornfields and, you know, cows and. And I'm coming from the city.
Graffiti on the walls, running from gangs, running to school.
Exactly.
And now you're going out to the cows.
I'm going out to the cows.
Wow.
Man. And I'm like, what is this? You know, it was like, wow. So we get to the campus, very beautiful. You know, it's like, wow, you know, but it was kind of like a culture shock, you know.
Yeah, I'll say.
People even speak a little differently, you know. It was like, wow, okay. And so I finished my high school year there. I did my junior and senior year there. It was...
Did you learn how to milk cows?
Oh, yeah.
Did you have to get up when the sun came up to milk the cows?
Milk the cows. I learned how to drive tractors.
Oh, wow.
Learned how to garden, farming. So they taught you how to work, you know, and it was pretty, like, to me, it was like, even looking back, it was like a healing process for me, you know, something that was different, you know, working with soil, you know, we grew corn, sweet potatoes, you know, all kinds of vegetables and stuff like that. And so yeah, it was it was pretty interesting, and I graduated from there, and so yeah, and then I went back to Chicago, and then eventually moved to Massachusetts.
And you went on with your career, and you met Kelly, and then you have your kids. So, Elton, you know, share with us, because a lot of times when these tragedies hit people, it's easy for people to get angry, even at God, right? I mean, we get it. Yeah. It's perplexing. It's difficult trying to filter through all of that. So how did you end up on the side of trusting in God? I mean, how did you see God through all that storm? I mean, what happened? What led you to that? I mean,
you know, talking to Mommy Daisy, she says, you know, if you were to describe your life, she says, your life, you know, it's like God was just sustaining you right through this whole process. She says, looking from the outside, you know, and yeah, you're right. It would have been easy just to be like, you know what? I'm done with this, you know, I'm not going to believe in God. I'm just going to do my own thing. You know, God is unfair. You know, you just start blaming on God. Yeah,
that's usually the question.
And you know, like a lot of my family or close friends, they were concerned because, you know, my dad was an alcoholic. You know, will Elton be an alcoholic? You know, what kind of path is he going to take here with all, you know, these big tragedies that he's gone through?
Good questions too.
Yeah, there were good questions. How this kid is going to turn out. One of my stepbrothers, he's I think he's the second oldest. He actually, you know, after my dad died, he went right down that path. Like my dad. He just went down exactly. He just mimicked what my dad did.
Right.
And you know.
So what do you think was a turning point for you?
Oh, my turning point was God and my mom. Oh my goodness, yeah.
So your mom's example, your mom's love for you.
My love for, even when she passed, you know, it was burning in my heart. I said, I can't disappoint God first, and I can't disappoint my mom. You know, she says, I want to see you in heaven.
Wow.
Yeah, if I take this path, I don't know where I'm going to end up. You know? And again, it would have been easy, you know? But there was this passion that she left in my heart.
Beautiful.
And that's where music just kicks in, you know? As you know, I don't do a whole lot of talking. This is probably the most talking I've ever done. But I'd rather
good.
sing
It's
for
good.
an hour. I'd rather sing for an hour, you know. But that's how I translate my feelings. That's how it was like, kind of like it was therapy for me. So every time I would sing, you know, and there was a song that I loved, you know, I can relate to it. Yeah, this is how I feel, and I would express it when I sing, you know. And so those different channels, that's what helped me, you know.
So when you look back on it and how, you know, the teacher recognized your gift, right? Then she talked to your mom, and then your mom was thought to encourage you to sing.
Yeah.
And you can see, like you mentioned, God's hand through it all.
Yeah.
So music, if I'm hearing you correctly, was one of the instruments that helped sustain you through it all, because
Exactly.
you were able to connect with your feelings and express that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it was my outlet. You know, it was my outlet.
Well,
you know,
that's beautiful.
in my ups and downs, you know. So yeah, definitely, it was just like a trifecta: God, mom, and music. You know, and everyone else, you know.
Sure, the all the community.
Yeah, the
part to
community.
play. But you know, the thing that stands out for me as I listen to your story again is how one person, that was your mom.
Yeah.
Ultimately, I mean, there was other people, your second mom and so on, but ultimately your mom, that God used your mom to impact your life in such a way to sustained you with God through all the tragedies.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, that's
So
right.
I just want to again mention to the audience, if you're listening today, that we all have gifts and we all have talents, and just use your influence in a positive way to impact somebody's life.
Amen.
So in wrapping it all up here, Elton, that if people are listening here today and perhaps they're going through tragedy, lost a loved one, trying to figure it out through the fog of the confusion, what would you say to them?
You know, this is what I say. You know, God is there in the midst of the storm that you're going through. You know, I don't know what you're going through right now. It can be a financial situation, a marriage that's falling apart, or you're struggling with your kids. But God is in the middle of all that, you know. And, you know, and again, you know, if I said it a couple of times, you know, everything is going to be all right. Everything's going to be all right. We can't see the picture right in front of us, but God sees the future, and He's there. He's there. He's going to take care of you, and He knows what's best for you.
No, that's beautiful. You know, I was reading in Psalms 13 the other day, and David was talking about the confusion that he was going through, and he couldn't see through the confusion. He was wondering where God was, you know? But then he says, but I'm going to trust in your unfailing love.
Amen.
And I think that's really what you're saying, right? That in spite of the circumstances that you're facing, is in perplexing as they are, and all the questions that might be coming to your mind, to trust in the unfailing love of God.
Amen.
And that He will bring you through.
Amen.
You know, Elton, I know your passion is for music. And by the way, where can people listen to your music? Your solos, perhaps your groups. You talked about your groups. There's Devoted and there's One Accord.
Yeah.
Where can they listen to those songs?
All right, I'll be putting the links, you know, on the video.
Beautiful.
But yeah, we're on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube. My personal music is also in those platforms. So and I'll just put all those links down there. Yeah, definitely.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Elton, you know, you mentioned that the song that you sang at your dad's funeral, the one that you sang for him the last time you saw him, was called My Tribute.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know that, you know, you just talked to your second mom.
Yeah.
And so it's been 33 years
33
since
years,
your mom had passed. In closing, would you like to share with us some of those gifts, your music gifts, and maybe do a little a cappella on that song for us?
Yeah, no problem. So yeah, this is my tribute song that the last song that I sang for my dad, and I continue to sing it. You know, I was continuing to sing it, but it's dear to my heart. So. How could I give thanks for the things you have done for me? Things so undeserved, yet you give to prove your love for me. The voices of a million angels could not express my gratitude, all that I am and ever hope to be. I owe it all to thee. To God be the glory. To God be the glory. To God be the glory for the things he has done. With his blood he has saved me. With his power he has raised me. To God be the glory for the things he has done. Just let me live my life and let it be pleasing, Lord, to thee. And shall I gain any praise, let it go to Calvary. With his blood he has saved me. With his power he has raised me. To God be the glory for the things he has done. For the things he has done.
Amen. That's beautiful.
Amen.
Absolutely beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us today.
Thank you for having me.
It's a beautiful story, again, about how God guides us all through the journey of life.
Amen.
Even through tragic times, he's there to lift us up. And thank you for using the gifts that you have to bless us as well.
Amen.
So if you have a question for Elton, you'd like to connect with him, you can send us an email at hello@loveshaped.life. That's hello@loveshaped.life. Just drop us an email. We'll pass it on to Elton. He'd be more than happy to answer any of your questions, share some thoughts with you. If you'd like to check out any of our other podcasts or our blogs or our cohorts, we have courses. Just go to loveshaped.life. You can also subscribe there and stay connected with us. And until then, until next time, lean into a love-shaped life.
For more information, visit loveshaped.life.